Welcome back, everyone. Let us now proceed to the next session of the day entitled Powered by Intellect, Driven by Values, in conversation with Narayana Murthy. Join me in welcoming Raymond Siva, Senior Vice President, Investment and Brand, Chief Marketing Officer of Malaysia Digital Carbon Corporation, in a conversation with Narayana Murthy, founder of Infosys Limited, India. Let them take you on a journey back to the International Advisory Panel for the then multimedia super corridor, where discussions of various developments in the world of information and communications technology all began. Over to you, gentlemen.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Malaysia Tech Month 2021. We're coming into our final leg of the entire month. We're into the final week and the surprises don't stop. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers over the last 3 weeks, and we have, I think, knocked ourselves out. We've upped our game with a speaker that we have here today, and an esteemed guest that has made some time to join us here today. I'm very happy to have with me Mr. Narayana Murthy, a globally renowned, recognized tech leader, and an esteemed guest of Malaysia over the last 25 years to join us at the Malaysia Tech Month 2021, ASEAN's largest digital and tech event. Welcome, Mr. Murthy. It's such a pleasure to host you back in Malaysia, albeit virtually.
Well, thank you very much, Raymond. It is indeed a pleasure to participate in this program.
If I may, Mr. Murthy, I'm just going to give our audience a bit of a background. For many of you who know and many more who don't, Mr. Murthy was one of the very first IAP members, the International Advisory Panel of the MSC back in 1996, when we launched the MSC Malaysia. And a bit of a background, Mr. Murthy founded Infosys in 1984, which is today a highly innovative software services global company that's listed on the New York Stock Exchange and also the Bombay Stock Exchange in Mumbai, with a 14 billion in revenue and about 92 billion in market cap. He is...
we reached 100 billion yesterday, day for yesterday.
I stand corrected, and this is the tech world evolving as we speak, sir. Right, and about, so that's fantastic. He also conceptualized, articulated, and implemented the global delivery model, which has become the backbone of the Indian software industry. 2014, he ranked 13 among CNBC's 25 global leaders and is listed among the 12 greatest entrepreneurs of our time by Fortune in 2012. He also received the Légion d'Honneur from France, the CBE from Britain, and the Padma Vibhushan from India. The Economist, no less, ranked him among the 10 most admired global business leaders in 2005. More recently, Mr. Murthy is ranked among the top 10 in the Financial Times list of business pioneers in technology, published in March 2015, and is the first Indian winner of the Ernst & Young World Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Mr. Murthy, it goes on and on. I think I have to stop there. And I hope that provides a flavor of what you have achieved and what we can learn from you in the next half an hour.
Thank you.
So, sir, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump straight into it, understanding that you also have limited time.
Yeah.
You were very instrumental during the formative years and the early years of the multimedia super corridor in Malaysia. And today, we have stepped into 25 years. Believe it or not, how time flies. You haven't aged, and I looked at the photos that I have with me. In fact, you're looking better now. Can you please share with us, for the benefit of all of us, the experience of being invited by our Prime Minister back then to be on this IAP, to be a board member with Malaysia's Multimedia Development Corporation?
Thanks, Raymond, for those kind words. I consider myself fortunate to have been invited by Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir to be a member of the International Advisory Council of the Multimedia Super Corridor project in Malaysia. The biggest plus for me was spending a couple of days with Dr. Mahathir one of the finest modern leaders of our era. His knowledge was very deep and wide. He could discuss wide-ranging issues from open source to latest advances in hardware for computing and communications. He would be there right at 7:30 a.m. in the morning to receive each one of us personally. He would be enthusiastic and energetic to lead various discussions from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. He was always very courteous, very open-minded, and very determined to learn about the leading edge ideas from various members of the IAC. He and his wife, another very, very kind person, would welcome each one of us personally at his house for a sumptuous dinner and interesting environment. They would also see us off individually at about 11 p.m. The most precious part of my visit was the full hour that I would spend with Dr. Mahathir alone in his office in Putrajaya. And he would want our honest views on how to improve MSc. He would write down my suggestions himself, since we would be the only two in the one-on-one meeting. I have not come across any other prime minister who had the humility and the desire and the open-mindedness to do so. So therefore, knowing Dr. Mahathir, spending a little bit time with him, and learning from all the wonderful things that were happening under his leadership in Malaysia was something extraordinary for me.
Mr. Murthy, I'm going to put you in a bit of a spot. Did you think when we embarked on this vision, Malaysia back then was the original startup? We were really, trying something new in the region. Did you think we would succeed, or did you think this was an ambition, that many pitfalls in front of us?
I think, Dr. Mahathir was a rare visionary. There is absolutely no doubt. I don't know if Malaysia had the privilege of many such visionaries. The world itself may not have many such visionary leaders. And he did a lot of wonderful things to put Malaysia on a sound footing. So therefore, my own view is that Malaysia will go from strength to strength to strength, thanks to the wonderful foundation that your leaders of the past era put Malaysia on a pedestal. So I have no doubt at all that Malaysia will continue to succeed and fulfill the vision of your leaders. I'm very, very confident.
Thank you, sir. And subsequent prime ministers and subsequent leaders in MDC and MDEC now have really given their all for the country to take us, for the past 25 years to where we are right now. So, from the Multimedia Development Corporation, we are now the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation, right? But still pushing the agenda of ICT, digital transformation, and driving the digital economy forward. In that same breath, Mr. Murthy, global research indicates about 90% of new startups fail. We were one of the original startups in Malaysia. We got through that, and I think we're in a good position now. But also 75% of venture-backed startups also fail, and just under 50% of businesses make it to their 5th year. Softronix, your maiden entrepreneurial venture, you saw it fit to repurpose or shut it down in 9 months, and then you joined Patni Computer Systems before starting Infosys. Why did you shut down in that startup in 9 months? What kind of learnings can we get in your decision to shut it down in 9 months? And second question, do you think Softronix could have been here today if you had spent more time building it?
Let me answer the two one after another. I set out on an experiment in entrepreneurship in Pune in 1976. The company Softronix was to develop software for commercial applications for the domestic market. Within 6 months of founding Softronix, I realized an important mistake. My mistake was not conducting a test marketing exercise to assess the market potential for software services in India. I discovered that there was hardly any domestic market for software services in India at that time. Very few computers were used by corporations in India at that time. The policy then was to protect the domestic market from international competition, because India was indeed producing some computers domestically. Now, most of these rudimentary domestic computers were being sold mainly to the government. So I realized that there was a structural problem in the market in India, and that it was not going to change for at least a decade. This led to an important lesson. That is, an entrepreneur must constantly scan the horizon for signs that his or her venture was likely to encounter a structural problem, and that the company was likely to fall into an irretrievable situation. This is the time for the entrepreneur to tone down his passion for the idea, keep emotions aside, and quickly bring the venture to a decent closure. Softronix had no domestic market, and there was no way I would be able to recover from it quickly. So I closed it in 9 months. Now you have asked me a question whether I could have continued Softronix longer, and whether the founders of startup companies should take more time to come to such a decision. Now, I've already spoken about Softronix, so I will not speak about Softronix, but I will talk about the general issue. I do not think there is any hard and fast rule for closing one's venture. There's nothing like I said, oh, you have to close it in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. No, there's nothing of the kind. I closed Softronix in 9 months since I knew that India of the 70s was not going to change in decades. Actually, it took 2 decades for India to change. That's not the problem today, on the other hand. These days, the environment is changing fast. The governments are changing their policies fast. Your own government has introduced so many new good policies. The customer preferences are changing rapidly. So the key question to ask is, if there is a structural problem, that is there any fundamental problem with the market that cannot be changed quickly? And if the entrepreneur were to come to that conclusion quickly, then I would say he or she should set emotions aside and bring the venture to a decent closure.
And that seems to be something that not many people will have the discipline to do, having invested emotionally into the business. So I think that's a really good insight. So to just a follow-on question, Mr. Murthy.
Yeah.
How long do you think founders of a startup nowadays should take to come to a decision? I mean, there's no set and hard and fast rule to this. But when is that inflection point where they can say, listen, this is failing? Or what are the signs to say, listen, this is failing, I need to do something else,
No, I thought I answered that.
Right.
I said, you will have to find out if there is a structural problem in the market. What do we mean by a structural problem? That is a problem in the market that is not going to change quickly. If it is a problem where your market share is lower than somebody else, then there is a way you can think about, okay, I have to do A, B, C to get a higher market share.
Yes.
On the other hand, if you know that no matter what you do, the market is not going to change in the next 10 years, there is no point in continuing with that. Or if there are so many very powerful competitors and your chance of catching up with them is almost impossible, then it is a structural problem. The third structural problem comes because of technology. Supposing you decide to produce a typewriter today. I mean, nobody will use a typewriter. Why would anybody use a typewriter when there are laptops and there is a word processor, on the laptop, right? So that is a technological problem, a structural problem. So therefore, you have to look at whether you have a problem that is not going to change quickly. So that's what I meant.
Sir, you went to work on in Patni, before starting Infosys, right? And a lot of this current generation of founders, also feel they can go straight into, a startup, right? A business. Should they jump straight out of college and start a new company? Or should they go under mentorship before venturing out?
Well, first of all, there are some cases where people who went straight out of college, founded companies have succeeded. I can think of two very easily. First is Bill Gates, who went straight from Harvard and succeeded. Then I can think of Facebook, where the founder again went out of Harvard and succeeded eminently. But on the other hand, there are many other situations where people took up a job, studied the market, understood how to run business, and then started them. For example, Jeff Bezos is one example, and he has succeeded eminently. There are many other cases. I personally believe that every entrepreneur has to work in a situation which will teach him or her basics of finance, sales, teamwork, handling people, technology, production, and customer focus before starting on one's own. For example, in my case, I understood during my time at Softronix that there was going to be no domestic market and that there was going to be a huge export market for customized software development. I went to work with partners since they were in the export market. I wanted to learn about this new market. I wanted to learn how to lead a team of large number of highly qualified software professionals. My time at Patnis gave this learning. I'm grateful to my boss, Shri Ashok Patni. So I would say that while there are exceptions where people have gone straight from college to found their own companies and succeeded, by and large, it is a good idea to work in a corporation, learn a little bit about one of the skills, as I said, finance, selling, production, etc., technology, etc. Perhaps bring together a team that has mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive set of skills, expertise, and experience, form the team, and then venture out on one's idea. That's what I would say.
Those are, very, very good advice, sir. They say try and make your mistakes in somebody else's companies first, right? And learn from a good boss. Obviously, the exceptions to the rule, American examples, and there are others around the region as well. I want to switch gears here a bit, Mr. Murthy, and you have then left to start your own company.
Yeah.
Now, powered by intellect, driven by values. Very strong statement that has made Infosys what it is today, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how the people in Infosys live by this principle, powered by intellect, driven by values?
Well, Raymond, I retired from the company in 2014, and I can only speak about my time at Infosys between 1981 and 2014. I believe that in the knowledge business, every professional has to embrace two important attributes. One is intellect, and second is values. If the professional wants to succeed. Let me talk about how we try to ensure that everybody in the company followed these two attributes. Well, good culture takes time to develop. Bad culture spreads very fast. I believe that the best instrument for creating good culture, that is a culture of intellect and values, is leadership by example. This is what Mahatma Gandhi taught us in the last century. It holds good today, tomorrow, and forever. For leaders to lead by example, They must walk the talk and practice the precept. For example, if you as the leader want others to come to the office on time, it is best that you come to the office ahead of all others. Because leaders are watched carefully by followers and they are imitated. There is no need to repeat any advice many times because your actions will speak louder than your words. Now, I understand that leaders will not be able to interact with every employee since an organization may operate in different locations and not all employees have access to the leaders. That's a reality. So it is important to ensure that the leaders at lower levels watch you, follow your principles, and practice leadership by example when dealing with their own juniors. They should also become messengers of good values by telling stories of their own leaders, that is, people like you, practicing good values and all the good that came out of it to the organization. I also believe that it is a good idea to create value champions in each department or each function and honor them at some annual function of the company. Now, value champions are those that demonstrate the values of the company, that lead by example. These value champions can be voted by the employees in a given department or a given function. This, I believe, will encourage the group to follow good values. Let me stop here.
I think those are insights that we may have thought about, but to hear you put it in so succinct terms, I think it bears for us to reflect on some of that key advice that you have given. I've said this before, and you know, I want to attribute this to you. You have mentioned in several interviews that we've seen a transformation from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist.
Yeah.
A transformation that's given birth to Infosys. Can you share with us about this transforming moment? Was it a moment in time, or was it a gradual shift?
I think it was, it's always gradual, but that gradual change requires a seminal event to become indelible in your mind. Let me talk about this event. I had an unpleasant and unfair experience with the police at a place called Niš in what was then the communist Yugoslavia and now Serbia. I am talking of 46, 47 years ago. Let me tell you this story. I was hitchhiking from Paris in France to Mysore, my hometown in India. I was given a ride by a driver in Bulgaria, in Belgrade in Yugoslavia, you know, the capital of Yugoslavia at that time. This kind person dropped me at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night at the railway station in Niš, which is a border town between former Yugoslavia, now Serbia, and Bulgaria. I went to the railway station looking for a restaurant. The restaurant was closed. The bank was closed the next morning since it was a Sunday. I could not eat because I had no local money. Those days there were no credit cards. I slept on the railway platform until 8:30 p.m. in the night because I wanted to conserve my energy. And at 8:30 p.m., the Sofia Express pulled in. That is the train that was to take me from Niš to Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. The only passengers in my compartment were a girl and a boy. I struck a conversation in French with the young girl. I tried English, they didn't understand. I tried Russian, they didn't want to speak Russian. Therefore, I tried my French and the girl understood, the boy didn't understand. The girl spoke about the travails of living in an iron curtain country until we were roughly interrupted by some policemen, who I later gathered were summoned by this young man. He probably thought that we were criticizing the communist government of Bulgaria. The girl was led away. My backpack and sleeping bag were confiscated. I was dragged along the platform into a small 8-foot by 8-foot room with a cold stone floor and a hole in one corner by way of toilet facilities. I was held in that bitterly cold room without food or water for over 72 hours. I had lost all hopes of ever seeing the outside world again when the door opened. I was again dragged out roughly, locked up in the guard's compartment of a departing freight train, and I was told that I would be released 20 hours later when the train would reach Istanbul. The guard's final words still ring in my ears, and he said, let me quote it, "You are from a friendly country called India, and that's why we are letting you go," unquote. The journey to Istanbul was lonely, and I was starving. This long, lonely, hungry, and thirsty, cold journey forced me to deeply rethink my convictions about leftism. Early on that Thursday morning, after being hungry for 108 hours, I was purged of the last vestiges of my affinity for the left. I concluded that entrepreneurship resulting in large-scale job creation was the only viable mechanism for eradicating poverty in societies. Well, Raymond, I must say that deep in my heart, I always thank the Bulgarian guards for transforming me from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. Inevitably, this sequence of events led to the eventual founding of Infosys in 1981.
That's a story I don't think many have heard. Mr. Murthy, thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine that, but it must have had such a dramatic and strong impact on you. And I think many entrepreneurs also have some seminal moments in their life, maybe not as drastic as what you went through, but no less a light bulb moment where they feel they have to do something to change themselves and then change the world. Because I think those are the ideas that really then transform the world and cut through the years. And so as you then went on to develop your business, you've also then integrated a concept called business value addition. Perhaps as we come to the end of this interview, you can tell us what this means, business value addition.
Raymond, as you know, according to economists, price is what you pay and value is what you get. Whenever you buy something, when a customer makes a buying decision, he or she is looking at the business value that he or she is getting per unit price he or she pays. That is, if you were to pay 1 Malaysian ringgit, then you would expect 2 Malaysian ringgits or 3 Malaysian ringgits of value to you. The beauty of this is that it allows both the vendor and the customer to be winners. Generally, higher the business value leverage, that is the ratio of the value that you get over the price that you pay. That is business value leverage. Higher the business value leverage, better is the brand value of what you buy. Successful selling is about maximizing this ratio. Let's now explain what differentiated business value added was in the Infosys context till I left the company. The most effective way to sell is to first understand the business value in Malaysian ringgits or US dollars or whatever you want, that your customer derives by buying your offering, by buying your widget. I started this exercise sometime in 2005 and called it business value addition or BVA. It basically required our salespeople and marketing people to involve mathematicians and statisticians at Infosys to create mathematical and statistical models for converting both the technical effort we put into any project and the business value that our customer derived from that project in US dollars and cents. I mean, you can use it in Malaysian ringgits, whatever you want. This exercise was necessary to determine our price to our customer and the value that our customer received from a specific project, because our business was developing bespoke application software. We looked at the ratio of the business value in US dollars, as I already explained, that we provided to our customer to the price our customer paid in US dollars for whatever we delivered them. Our objective was to maximize this ratio, that is value to the customer or the price the customer paid. How did we do it? This is where differentiated business value leverage comes into picture. Let me explain this in simple words. A vendor V1 offers a service S to a prospect C at a price of $1. And this vendor V1 communicates through mathematical models to that prospect C that C actually gets a value of $2. The business value leverage in this case is 2/1 or 2, right? Value over price. Value was 2, price was 1, so 2/1 equal to 2. On the other hand, let's assume that there is a vendor V2 who offers the same service S. That could be he developed the same piece of software to the same prospect C at a price of $1.20. In other words, while vendor V1 gives a proposal saying that he will charge $1 US and his proposition will provide the customer $2 of value, the vendor V2 says, I will charge you $1.20. However, I convince you through my mathematical models that you, the customer C, will indeed receive a value of $3 US. Now, the business value leverage from vendor V2 is 3 divided by 1.2, that is 2.5. In other words, vendor V1 gives a business value leverage of 2, but he's cheaper at just $1. On the other hand, vendor V2 provides a business value leverage of 2.5, that is value of 3 divided by price of 1.2, but he is 20% more expensive. Our own experience has been that the prospect C is happier that he is receiving a value 2.5 times the price that he is going to pay, and he will gladly pay. Now, the beauty is, at the same time, this vendor V2 has received 20% higher price compared to V1, and yet he has won the game. He has won the proposal. He has won the competition. What is the meaning of that? It means vendor V2 can invest more in his people, in training, in quality and productivity tools, in infrastructure, in technology and branding. Now, obviously, such an offer, or like the one that V2 made, is a win-win for both the vendor and the customer. This is what we call differentiated business value leverage. Let me stop here.
I think that model is something that we all can take away. I mean, we talk about always adding value, but to really have a mathematical proposition behind it about what that value actually translates to, whether it's a perceived value or tangible value to your customer, and keeping that always in mind, I think is a fantastic reminder in this time where everybody is pressing on price, right? So what you said, I think, will resonate with a lot of our audience here, Mr. Murthy, and I look more towards reading on this BVA and how we can share that more widely, with our ecosystem players. Having taken up 45 minutes of your time, I'm going to ask you one last question very quickly, Mr. Murthy, since I already have you here as a captive, subject matter. Gazing into your sustainably produced glass ball, what do you think the future is going to look like? Like, what are the changes that have taken place or going to take place? Maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that you think we must be aware of in this new normal.
So I think the new normal has obviously impacted the GDP of most countries. So it is going to be highly competitive. The market is going to be highly competitive. The spends are lower. Therefore, people will have to become much more innovative in using whatever little money they can spend in coming out with very impactful innovations. The new normal will also result in more and more people working from home.
Yes.
Which means it is very difficult to build an institutional culture. Because if you are not interacting in 3 dimensions, in the environment of the office, at close quarters, and see body language, then it becomes that much more difficult to build institutional cultures. Now, once you find it difficult to bring institutional cultures, build institutional cultures, then innovation will become that much more difficult.
Right.
Money is less, therefore innovation becomes even more difficult. And the competition is high. Therefore, we will see a shakeout in the marketplace where really smart people will succeed very well, and the not so smart people may bite the dust. So this is the time for all of us to keep this in mind and focus on austerity, focus on value for money, focus on innovation, focus on customer, focus on building a certain organizational culture, a certain institutional culture, even in this paradigm of work from home. So I think there's a lot that we need to learn. But one thing is certain, we have to become more competitive. We have to bring in a lot of innovation. We have to spend less. We have to become more austere. We have to look for value for money in everything that we do. That's what I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Narayana Murthy, founder of Infosys Limited, it's been an absolute honor and privilege to spend 45 minutes with you, sir. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and hopefully when this is all over, we can invite you back to Malaysia and revisit this country again after a long absence. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a great day ahead and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that insightful conversation, bringing us back in time, technology in India, and 25 years ago, in the formation of our own nation's pride, Malaysia's multimedia super corridor, as well as the current state of innovation and technology. We will now be moving forward to our next session of the day. It will begin very shortly. Do click join session. Please complete the survey for each of the sessions for us to continuously serve you better. See you in a bit.